Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Hannah Bowler. I'm a reporter at Broadcast Magazine. Now, joining me today are Bandicoot co-founders Daniel Nettington and Derek McLean. So, Derek and Daniel, they set up just 3 years ago and already have landed ITV's biggest new Saturday night entertainment show. The pair are also primed to launch the show's next iteration, The Masked Dancer. So, Daniel and Derek, welcome. And first of all, I wanted to say thank you for bringing the show to our screens because it's the silliness all of us need in our lives. So thank you guys.
Our pleasure.
Our pleasure. You're very welcome. When we started it, Dan used to always say in interviews that we were the antidote to Brexit because we were a cheery, upbeat show to bring the country back together. Little did we realise that masks were going to become such a huge part of our life, but hopefully the show is a bit of fun through everything we've been through in the last couple of years.
Yeah, definitely. It's the respite we all need, 100%. So, starting with The Masked Singer then, you snapped up the rights to the Korean format in 2018. So, what about the format kind of drew you to it, and how did you know it'd be a hit? Derek, maybe start with you.
Sure. So it's actually really interesting genesis. The show kind of made some noise around 2015 when it launched in Korea, and it had a sort of interest around the world, and actually had been picked up by another group in the UK and in the US, and nearly got commissioned, I think, at MTV, and then died away. It didn't really do anything, and actually it then sort of moved to Thailand and was doing really well in the Far East, and the Thai version was just extravagant and completely different to the Korean one, really spectacular. And so the show had been on my radar when I was working in LA, and we liked it, but it's sort of gone away. And then for us, I mean, the thing that really made me think it might be a hit is that I knew Fox had bought it. I'd been talking with Rob Wade and Claire O'Donoghue at Fox, and they were talking about how to cut the panel for comedy of this new show, because I'd done lots of panel shows here in the UK, and it's a different kind of edit, trying to do it for comedy rather than talent. And actually, I think Claire said, she was like, oh, well, if you can't work on the show, you can't do the show here in the US, the next best thing would be you should get it for the UK. And I thought, that's a good idea. So I came back from that and I said to Dan, we've got to get this, we've got to get this show. Fox are going to do this show. I think it's going to be great. It's really us. Dan had spent years putting celebrities in daft outfits on Big Brother as a task producer. I'd spent years doing celeb shows and making panel shows where we, did lots of like silly comedy things. And we just thought it was the perfect show for us to make and to take out to the market. So I then spent days, weeks phoning Korea, trying to find the license holder, listening to Korean automated phone lines. Literally, it's the equivalent of, I was dialing the network in the way you dial like the BBC at Portland Place, trying to get through to whoever owns Strictly.
Yeah.
Eventually found someone who could help me in English. And it was a bit of a race for the rights, to be honest. So I think by that point, the sort of news had been out that Fox were doing it. And my understanding is I think we got there, like literally a day or half a day before, other people. So we were we were lucky and we had an edge. But, for us, it is the perfect show. I mean, Dan, you love the format, right?
Yeah, within 12 hours of us finally securing the deal, I was on a plane to LA to try and get there for the final record of the Fox first series, and I managed it. And I sat in a room thinking, what is it we've bought? Because we've only been going like about 18 months, and this is like half of our development budget. We've just put on a punt on the show. And we're very, very quickly it became clear that this is not the show that people think it is. This show is a guessing game. It's not a singing show with silly costumes, although it is that as well. It's ultimately an incredibly addictive guessing game. So I came back buzzing like a maniac to see Derek, to say, it's going to be huge. It's going to be mega. It's going to be huge. And so the next thing we did was go around to all the networks to try and sell it over here.
Yeah, so talk me through that process, the kind of pitching of it, because it ended up at ITV, but I heard that there wasn't that much bite in the beginning, kind of until Fox had kind of been proven to land on Fox. So kind of what were the conversations you were having with the broadcasters trying to flog the show at the beginning? Derek, maybe for you first?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. To follow on from what Dad said, we went out and we took it to every broadcaster, and I think they all said no. What was really, that's not fair. They didn't all say no, but what you sort of felt we were getting back was this, do we really need another singing show? There's so many singing shows on TV. Really, is it going to be that different? And to Dan's point, we were sitting in these meetings going, it's not a singing show, it's a guessing game. You've got to understand it's completely different. For the audience, it's going to be completely different. It's a guessing game. And it just, at first, I think people, they were like, oh, it's one of those, you're just thinking, oh, we're just pitching, it's like, yeah, whatever, it's still a singing show. And then I think once, obviously, the atmosphere completely changed when they saw the Fox version go out and the figures. And, it was it's one of those very pleasant situations where you're sort of pushing something up a hill and you're determined to get it. And then suddenly everything changes and there's loads of interest and the ball starts rolling down the hill. And it's like quite pleasant for you because we were then sort of having conversations about where the show could go.
Yeah, I feel like it kicking off in Fox was kind of integral, I guess, to the format as a whole. Would you say that internationally, that kind of?
Well, we knew it was going to be big. We'd been telling everyone for the last 6 months this show's going to be big. It's going to be big, but we did not expect it to land as bigly, as Donald Trump would say, at Fox. But it just went mega. And what was interesting, what happened in America happened over here. That the American press all dismissed the show and said it was ridiculous. And then within a week, the whole American press was saying this is the savior of Saturday night television. And the same thing happened over here. We had a really dismissive Guardian article that came out just after we launched. And then within a week, they were saying this is the savior of Saturday night TV. So we followed the exact same sort of path and arc that the American show did.
I think it's hard when it's a kitsch. It's a kitsch format and it's fun, and I think it's very hard before you actually see it land to understand, what it could be. So I think we got a lot of so bad it's good kind of reviews and comments, and then people sort of finally fell in love with it. But I think the interesting thing about the format is, it has traveled the world in the opposite direction to how formats usually travel. So it started in the Far East. It was already a hit in the US before it came here. That's quite an unusual trajectory for shows. We see ourselves as format developers here in the UK and exporters. So it was quite an unusual thing, I think, to import such a large show and take a big risk on it, which was but I think, as you say, sort of the Fox having done it well, I think was a real help.
Right. And so you are about to launch the next version of the show, The Masked Dancer, and it's coming out later on this month. Which everyone is really excited about. And I think you've got a trailer for us, which is an exclusive trailer.
It's very exclusive.
Yeah, very exclusive. So here is the first one. So if we could play the trailer, that'd be great.
This is The Masked Dancer. Let's do it! Each dancer's identity is hidden at all times. Their voice is distorted in interviews.
No one wants to see my real face.
But their clues are everywhere.
This is so much harder because when they sing, you have a voice to work on.
As every night this week, they are eliminated and unmasked. Plus, a new shimmying secret agent joins the panel.
For your first day at work, Ota, you're absolutely smashing it.
I try.
Oh, hello. That is a good-looking llama. There were high kicks, there were jumps, there were jazz hands, there were spins, turns.
They backflipped off the car. W-O-W, wow.
It's not a real dog, is it?
One thing I did notice from watching that though is I don't know how people dance in like extra things, because when I dance I need a lot less restrictive gear for sure. So I'm intrigued to see how that plays out.
Well, that's one of the big challenges. One of the big challenges
I
for
can
dancers is that our costumes are some. If you look at all the different iterations of the show around the world, our costumes are the most elaborate and generally the most bulky. And so we didn't want to compromise on the way our costumes are, but at the same time, they do need to see, they do need to move around on the stage without falling off the edge, and they do need to be able to breathe. And I feel like that's one of the triumphs we've achieved. Hopefully the viewers will agree. But the costumes are as good as Singer, but they're just slightly tweaked.
Yeah, great. You do need to streamline a little bit for movement. So Daniel, maybe talking on the spin-off of the show, kind of how did you decide the format points and what's kind of going to come up that's a bit different to what you've already done?
Well, what obviously makes this show different to The Masked Singer is the fact that you can't hear their singing voice, which is the biggest clue of them all. Which is why some of the people, like for example, Nicola Roberts or CeeLo Green, they get guessed on social media almost instantly. We don't have that on this one, so it relies heavily on the clues. So there are literally clues everywhere on this version. There are clues in the performances, there are clues on the costumes, there are clues in the graphics that are playing out behind them. There's physical clues on the stage. We've got more brand new physical, brand new in-studio clue games. At one point, I think it's in episode 5, you'll get to hear their speaking voice without the distorted effect on it for the very first time. So we've chucked loads of clues out. Too many clues.
All right, too many clues. That's the differentiator from the last series.
For the panel,
what was that, Derek?
For the panel, one of their first comments and what they found really different was obviously they didn't have the voice to hook onto. And so that made the guessing game so much more challenging. And I think for the audience at home, that's going to be the real fun of it, is that it's you thought The Masked Singer was easy. Well, have a go at this. But what you realize really quickly, it was amazing to see how quickly people could sort of start eliminating people or putting very good guesses forward because of body types and the way people move. And, so we realized really quickly, the guessing game is as good, if not better, in this show.
Okay, cool. So a lot of pressures do kind of come with landing a second kind of a spin-off series. I don't know if you could kind of talk to that. Do they come with more or do they come with less pressure because the format has kind of worked? Kind of, I don't know, Derek, maybe if you could kind of touch on that.
So, I mean, it's a really good question. I think there are obviously, there are different challenges. I think this doesn't feel like a spin-off, to be honest. I think because it's dancing is completely different to singing. So I think what's been interesting, I think what ITV have done cleverly is, they wanted a dancing show. They wanted a different way of doing dancing, which they didn't have on air necessarily. So, you're taking away some of the risk by branding a show. We've got the Masked brand. We know that works really well. It's the guessing game. But under the bonnet, the show is actually completely different to make, because making a dancing show is completely different to making a singing show. The rehearsals take much longer. It's more challenging probably for the performers in it. They have to take more time, to learn the dances. Our production schedule is so much more stretched. Because of that, we've got to keep the secret for much longer. We're in and out in 2 weeks. This takes, more than a month to make. So once you see it, it doesn't, of course there are elements that are really similar, but it doesn't really feel like a spin-off. It feels like another excellent show from the same pedigree, is how I would describe it.
Love it. Love that. I would like to briefly talk about talent. Now, over the last 2 series and now The Dancer, you've racked up an impressive roster of talent and quite varied and niche in some areas. So it's quite interesting. I wondered, how are you working with that talent that you've kind of brought into the show in other projects? Daniel, maybe I go to you.
Okay, well, you can talk about what you're doing.
Well, Derek can start off. Derek deals with the talent more than I do.
Go for it.
Okay. I mean, yeah, absolutely. So my background is doing a lot of shows with talent in them, and you sort of realize that once you're working with people, it's far more of a opportunity to do more than than just pitching cold to the agent. So we see that as a really valuable asset as part of the show, that we begin to build rapport and relationships with the talent. I think the key thing on that is that they have to have an amazing experience on Masked Singer, or they won't do stuff with us again. And so that's the first thing we do, is make sure that the experience from start to finish is an amazing one for the talent. And we are really touched by, the things that they've said, both privately to us and publicly in interviews afterwards. Lenny Henry was amazing in terms of what he said about his experience on the show, and it was really touching. So I think that's the first thing, is that we make sure they have an amazing experience. But yeah, going forward, we, then you know, we've got a development team, and the first thing we want to do is listen to our talent that we've worked with, get some ideas from them about who they, you know, what they want to do, where they want to go next. So we're quite a way down in that process with a number of different stars that we've worked with. Dan, do you want to? I think you can sort of hint at some.
Yeah, there's a show that we're developing with a big American streamer with seriously A-list talent that's come off the fact that we've been able to produce The Masked Singer in the UK. And further to Derek's point, what it is that we don't have to sell the show, the second series and the third series, as much, because the celebrities that have done the show sell it for us. You know, they all know each other, obviously, but they have such a brilliant time on it. Unlike any other show, I think, because we're never going to trip them up. It's joyous, it's celebratory, and the public love it. So it doesn't. Our celebrity team would not appreciate me saying it sells itself at all, but it does open the doors to far higher talent than you would usually see on what is essentially a reality talent show.
Yeah,
one of
definitely.
the things just after that is what I didn't realize until we started making the shows. Usually with a celeb show like this, with like Strictly or I'm a Celeb, the celebs are doing something they've never done before. You know, they're out of water, so you're teaching someone to do something. What we realized so quickly is that we're asking stars to do what they do for a living on our show. So they come with a level of expectation and they come with a level of knowledge, and this is their strength. You know, so if they're an amazing singer, they really understand how their voice works, what works for them. So we have to really work with them and make sure they feel confident, you know, in the show. And that's what I think is really different about this show to other sort of big celeb formats like this. It's about people doing what they do for a living really well. So it's a platform and a showcase for our talents. We're not putting them in bikinis and making them eat worms, or, you know, making them learn a new talent that they don't have. It's It's what.
Absolutely. So since the show came out in the UK, there's been a kind of rise of these similar kind of guessing game type formats. We've got ones like I Can See Your Face, of BBC, Game of Talents, and then the recent show, This Is My House, which is pretty fun as a side comment. So what do you think is about these guessing games that are kind of hitting right now, and what is it about them that the audience are kind of really resonating with?
Well, I think
Daniel,
this
maybe
leads
start
back.
with you.
Yeah, I think this leads back to what we were saying earlier. When we knew what The Masked Singer was about, and when we were first pitching it, we were selling it as a guessing game. And I remember writing a little note that I read, that I sent back to Derek from LA. It's saying how the parlor game of the guessing game is going to be the next big thing, because it's so addictive. It's like that old mystery box idea. When you don't know what's in the mystery box, you become obsessive about it, and it's addictive. And I said to him there and then, if we can harness the power of the guessing game, then we'll be doing good. And I think that's what's happened. I think once The Masked Singer came out and everyone said, all right, it's a guessing game, then every development team in the UK were coming up with development with guessing game ideas. And I think now we're seeing that finally getting to the screens. And I think a lot of them are really, really good. I think I Can See Your Voice. I think This Is Our House are brilliant shows. But we will hit a point where we've had enough of them.
Yeah,
This Is My House
that's
is
always the fear.
This Is My House is my
What was
favorite
it?
show at the moment. I've been raving about This Is My House. But I think, you know, the key thing is the guessing game. It's the new thing for the audience at home to do. It gives it's that classic thing of you've got to engage your audience. And for me, it's the format. You know, the way with Strictly and X Factor when they launched, and I'm a Celeb, it was the fact that audiences could phone in and vote and control who was in Big Brother as well, who could control who was in the show and who left the show. And that was an innovation at the time, and it felt like you could take, you know, older formats and do them in a different way because suddenly the audience were in charge of, you know, the vote. And I think the guessing game is just the next entertainment format tweak for the audience at home, that they get to argue with whoever they're viewing with about who's on the show. And it really works with social media. It really works with that the guessing game plays out live on social. So I do think, you know, social media platforms have really sort of amplified the success of the show.
Yeah, also the fact that like now less people phone in and engage in the shows because that's kind of the past, I guess. This is like the next iteration of that.
Exactly.
Great. And where do you think it could go next? Do you think it will hit a kind of peak, or have you got any other ideas in your kind of toolbox of where to spin guessing games?
There will get saturation point for guessing games, and only the superior ones will survive. Where it goes next, who knows? But I do think that what the Masked Singer and the guessing games have done is open the idea to the fact that we can be a little bit more left field with our formats. I don't think anyone would have believed that this show would have been a hit because of the silliness of it, the bonkers. You'd say it's too niche, it's too left field. And what we've proved and what the show has proved is that left field and bonkers can be mainstream. And in fact, it very much is mainstream. So, you know, this may in fact open a lot of doors for more risk taking when it comes to what it is that works on a Saturday night or in entertainment in general.
I think that's a key point. I think, I think, you know, there are so many more options for people to watch now. There's so many, you know, more, you know, places for eyeballs to go. So I don't think being safe really is an option anymore. And I think, you know, I hope what we show is that you can take risks, but you can mitigate those risks. Yes, we're a format that came from abroad, but the show is bonkers. And if you do something that's bonkers and fun and joyful, which is a risk for a mainstream channel to do something on this scale that is so crazy, but it shows that audiences will come and will accept it. And you've got to be loud and got to be noisy in this market to make sure people come and watch, you know, your channel. So I think that's a lesson to broadcasters.
Yeah, do you think that maybe over the last kind of year from the pandemic, is there still an appetite for risk, or is there still a little bit play it safe for the moment because of money and various other things? Or do you think that there is really a coming to you to kind of ask for bigger shows?
You know, I said recently, you know, I do think, you know, I would argue that ITV have taken a really big risk doing Masked Dancer because, you know, it's completely different, but they've mitigated the risk cleverly because, you know, it's branded as the masked ... Viewers come to it knowing and having an expectation of the level of quality and the level of, you know, sort of production values that are around, you know, Masked Singer, and, you know, and we bring that over. There's an expectation about the level of celebrities that will be on the show, which we've matched. You know, so I think that's a clever way for a network to take risk, I would argue. You know, they're launching a very new and very different format, but they're just mitigating the risk slightly by using, you know, a familiar brand that works on their channel already.
Yeah, and it makes sense. It's kind of staying on entertainment and kind of appetite from broadcasters. Where do you think that the appetite is coming from? Like, what kind of genres, what kind of themes are people going for? I don't know, maybe Daniel could kind of go to you for that.
Well, what we've seen in the last couple of years accelerate is the fact that the SVODs, the Netflix, the Amazons, everyone's looking to see how entertainment lands in their space. You know, traditionally, when we first got Netflix, you thought there's never going to be a quiz show or a game show or a reality show on Netflix. It just wouldn't work on the platform. And we're seeing how that they do work, and we're seeing how the appetite for these guys to go and try and do what is a game show that would work on Netflix. And this is sort of the area that we would like Bandicoot to head into next. We want to see if we can be sort of part of the forming of what entertainment does look like on the streamers. And by entertainment, I mean pure entertainment formats.
Yeah, so what kind of is next for you guys as a company? What are you currently kind of looking to develop in? I don't know, Derek, maybe kick off with you?
So I think what's been great about The Masked Singer is there's no question that it has knocked us up a level in terms of expectation for a company that's very young. You know, we're only three. It's our fourth year going. I don't think Dan and I had made big shows in the past, but I don't think we expected to be back here so early in the journey of our company. So I think that has been an unbelievable gift for us, for the company. So, you know, we are absolutely chasing more big formats. We feel like we are a player who have proven that we can deliver Saturday night primetime entertainment. There aren't many people doing that, and there certainly aren't many small companies based in Scotland doing that, and we are. So I think that's given us an opportunity. It's a great calling card for us when we go, as Dan says, to SVODs, to the US market, that we make this show and we make it so well, and and can demonstrate that. So we've got a lot coming down the line. We've got we're doing stuff that we traditionally do, cast-led, formatted series. We're doing more quiz and game. We've got a lot coming up, and as Dan says, what's great is it feels like there are more clients to go to with all the SVODs now, and we're really pushing those doors. And we're really challenging our US development. We have a big ambition to be back in the States working, so that's definitely on our agenda. We've just hired a new development team to do that.
Yeah. And what about kind of like smaller, like obviously you're talking about big, huge entertainment shows. Are you kind of looking to do anything smaller in your portfolio, in terms of, I don't know, working with like local broadcasts in Scotland, or where is that, or is it kind of the sky's the limit on the big shows?
It's funny. The show we did directly before Masked Singer was called Test Drive, and it was for BBC Scotland channel. As a budget, the fraction of what it is compared to the Masked Singer is probably a sort of like to 1% or less, a point something percent. And we put as much of our effort and passion into that show as we did Masked Singer. And what's great about that show is it has sold abroad in other territories. So it's a quiz in a car. It's great fun. We made it on a shoestring. Joe Street, who was the commissioner who commissioned it, just took it off small tape, and we were producing that really quickly. She was brilliantly supportive of that. She's now at Channel 4. We want to make more stuff like that for her there, as well as making stuff for BBC Scotland channel. We're agnostic. We'll work for anyone, with anyone.
Absolutely, because when we started Up Bandicoot, within the first couple of years, we had two of our own original series out before we got the rights to the Masked Singer, and I think we're still open to acquisition and optioning formats, absolutely. But we also want to make sure that people don't forget that we originate our own IP as well. So I think that's a big focus going forward for us. But as I say, we're not picky. We just like making telly.
I actually have quite a few questions now come through. I was going to kind of leave 5 minutes, but there's quite a few good ones, so I might just dip into some of these. So I've got a question.
Merchandise that anyone can buy at the masksingeruk.com/merchandise store. If you'd like to,
we'll put the link in the chat function if anyone does want to purchase some merch. Shameless plug. So I've got a question here around the social media. So we kind of touched on it earlier, but the question says, how do you work with the viewers at home through social media, and is it a large part of your production plan to build on the hype? And kind of how do you build the social media content?
Yeah, we work with the wonderful Story Hunter, and in fact, the campaign we did on the Masked Singer Series 1 won an award at the TBI Awards for our campaign. We take it very, very seriously. Again, when we first saw how the Masked Singer landed in America, they didn't really exploit the socials as much as we thought they could. So this was always first and foremost a very serious part of how we sort of wanted to attack the UK market with this show. So so much goes into it. They're on site, Story Hunter, recording stuff backstage. The social media plans that we have, I'm signing off for Dancer already. It's super important. I can't underestimate how important it is.
Social media has, as I said before, social media has amplified the show hugely. I think it's a shared experience. It drives viewers to it. Story Hunter couldn't believe how quickly we were able to establish our presence with Masked Singer, accounts on Instagram and Twitter. We were the fastest growing. I think we're the only kind of new accounts that had been able to generate that number of viewers with no sort of paid promotion. We were able to just sort of create these huge audiences, and we try and use them as much as possible because it's a great experience for the viewers. It's a completely different experience if you watch the show with social than without, but it really does amplify the show.
What we've got an advantage over is that our show doesn't really work on catch up because of social. That unmasking, you have to be there and then for that unmasking, or you will find out about it. You can't escape it on social. So you need to. It's appointment review. It's a sort of a gold dust for a commission for a channel.
Okay. I've got something here that we kind of again touched on a little bit, but maybe we could develop a bit more in terms of how do you build kind of large scale Saturday night entertainment shows. And I guess off the back of that, what is the shape of Saturday night entertainment for you guys? Let's kick off.
I don't think there's much mystery to this. I think, look, really traditional people still love the same kind of things. They love singing, they love dancing, they love talent. But what they want to see is a different iteration. This is my opinion. They want to see a different iteration, not a knockoff show. So you've got to try and find originality or something different within those worlds for Saturday night, I think. And as we've said a lot, and everyone will feel it's a broken record in the next few months, but the guessing game is what's different with this. Obviously the costumes it's bonkers for us, but the guessing game for other shows has really worked as well. I think you've got to be ambitious these days. You've got, I think the channel were really supportive of us. They gave us the budget on our first series to get the stars, the level of stars that we wanted to get. We didn't have to, prove ourselves and then increase a budget. We went for it, and the channel went for it. And I think nowadays that's a bigger challenge. You've got to really go for it from the get-go. I don't think audiences are sort of forgiving and sort of go, oh, they were really crap celebs, they'll probably be better next year. It wouldn't work like that. So I think, you've got to be you've got to be straight out the bat, and I think there's much less room to make mistakes nowadays. That's the one thing I would say is really challenging.
I think going back to Saturday night, I think the key also that we haven't touched on today is family viewing, the communal shared viewing, which this show succeeded to do. I think it's a long time since the entire family have got together to watch a show, or the way I play it with my family is that I've got my family with me and I'm talking all the way through it on WhatsApp with my other family, my mum and my dad. There's so many different WhatsApp groups that it's communal viewing like never before, I think.
Totally. Okay, so I've got one question here on how do you find your formats? And if I have an idea, not me, the person asking the question, if I have an idea, can people approach you?
We find our formats by watching Fox TV in America. I think what we've said before, we just never know where the next hit is going to come from, and I think you can be too closed-minded and think, right, we're only developing our own stuff, we're not looking around the world. I think you've just got to be open to everything. We're partnering and co-producing with a number of people on a number of different ideas because we think they are great and going to be the next smash. So they're not our ideas, but we're partnering with them to make them because we're agnostic about where they come from. We're really open to other people's ideas. We also develop our own ideas because you just don't know where the next big hit is coming from.
Okay, great. And then there's one here about the kind of difference between entertainment on the streamers versus the networks. So do you guys have any idea, any kind of, I guess, pulse in that? How does the genres kind of differentiate between the two?
That's hard.
Is there anything that one of them doesn't do? Pardon?
That's quite hard to answer, so Dan can answer that.
Go on, Dan.
I think it's interesting when you get your reality shows like Too Hot to Handle, which can be consumed in the same way that a Netflix box set can be. I don't think there is much of a difference. I think to answer that, we don't know because, as I said earlier, I think what does a game show look like on a streamer? I think we're about to find out quite soon. Is what I'd say, and hopefully it will have Bandicoot's name at the end of it.
Good luck, guys. We're actually out of time, but I'm going to thank you all. Thank you both for being here. We're looking forward to seeing the show at the end of the month. And yeah, if you want to buy merch, there's the link in the chat function. So there you go. Thanks very much, guys. It was lovely having you.
Thanks, Hannah.
Right.